Welcome to the WagerTalk Podcast for the week ending July 15th. We've got a big show tonight. Carmine Bianco will be joining us to talk World Cup soccer. We've got 2 games left, the championship game and the third place game. We also have another edition tonight of Handicapper's Corner. Dave Koken and Ralph Michaels will be here in studio with me tonight. We'll be talking about the biggest baseball games of this weekend. And, of course, at the end of the show, best bets. Last week, 1-1-1, 19-16 on the record. So we'll have that at the end of the show. Of course, Mark Seidel is behind the controls. And I'm your host, Marco D'Angelo. Let's get this party started. And we'll start the night off. We'll bring in right now our first guest. It is Carmine Bianco, our own WagerTalk soccer expert. Carmine, welcome to the show. I got to ask you first question. I already know the answer, but I want to ask it so you can say it for the listeners. Are you happy with the final matchup that you got here?
I am. It's you know, I mean, I'm loving it. You've got 2 very good teams, and obviously, as we'll probably get into, 2 teams that I have futures on, so it couldn't have worked out any better. You know, going into the semifinals, we had France, Belgium, and Croatia, England. I had 3 of the 4. I was able to hedge out a little bit, taking England. It's the smart thing to do as a bettor. You always hedge some of it out, but I'd be very happy with Croatia winning on Sunday, but I won't be disappointed if it's France.
You know, Carmen, one thing to talk about people that have futures, in the WagerTalk videos you did, the amazing thing is you only picked 3 teams to win it. You only had 3 future bets. And so to make those 3 future bets and have them end up in the Final 4, that's where you deserve congratulations.
No, I appreciate it. You know, the great thing about those videos is it sent a lot of guys, both to WagerTalk, but also to Twitter to sort of track me down. And I've had a couple of guys who are our clients who sent me DMs on how to hedge out like certain wagers. There's one guy, I'm obviously not going to mention his screen name, but he has a fantastic weird wager at the same time, which is he has Croatia at 14-1 to lose the final on Sunday. Now, and he's got a substantial amount. We're not talking a few $100s. He's got a big amount. So he is in a great position now at 14-1 for them to lose the final. He can take them to lift the trophy at plus 175, I think it was, as of this morning, and literally hedge himself out a fairly good profit.
That's anytime you can do that, Carmine. You got pluses all over the place. That's what you do. And I know you're in horse racing too, and we have a saying, when somebody makes you a good offer on a horse, I learned the hard way, take the good offer, because a cashier's check never goes lame.
Well,
I like that.
That's exactly it. Listen, Warren Buffett doesn't have the money he has by just buying stocks and then sitting on them. He literally makes his money and gets out, and that's the name of the game. So you should treat sports the same way. If you've got substantial wagers, yeah, sure, it's fun to sit there on Sunday with a ticket on Croatia, and if you got them at whatever 30-1, 35-1, 40-1, it's great to stand there. But at the end of the day, if you're going to regret, if the final is 1-0 France, and you're going to regret having hedged out that wager or having made that wager, then you should have hedged it out. The idea is to make money and live to see another day. That's what sports betting is all about. It's making the right moves for your bankroll. It's money management. So,
Carmine,
hopefully guys are doing that.
So looking at this game, let's forget the fact that you are in a sweet position with your futures. If you had no bet at all yet, how would you be looking at this game on Sunday?
Well, I'm going to look at it the exact same way as I'm looking at it now with futures. Is I'm literally going to take. I've got to think about, number one. I've got to think about my clients first. So I put that in my analysis each and every time. Is none of my selections are based on hedges or futures. They're based on a game by game basis and who I think is going to win. And it's the same way where I've broken down this game for France and Croatia, and it'll actually be up on the website later on this evening with 5 different prop bets that I think offer pretty good value for the World Cup final. I think you've got 2 very good teams with 2 very good back lines and midfields, and it's not going to be a score fest. We may or may not see that on Saturday in the other game that we'll discuss shortly, but I think it's going to be a great game. France is obviously favored for a reason. They've got a great young team, but this Croatia team refuses to die. 3 straight games. They played 120 minutes, winning twice in penalties and then in extra time yesterday. So they just refuse to die, and you just can't discount them on Sunday.
Hey, Carmine, when you talk about those 3 straight games, is this the same break that they had for the previous games, or is it an extended break?
Well, no, because the Denmark game was Denmark game was July 1st. They had 6 days off before they played Russia. They played Russia on the 7th, and 4 days later they played England, and now we're talking 1, 2, 3 days off, and now they're playing they're playing France.
So the breaks have actually gotten shorter.
There's a break between the Denmark Croatia game, but that's the Denmark and the Russia game. But that's mainly because that was the round of 16. There were 2 games being played a day, so as we got down to the quarterfinals, the World Cup, I always say, is about money, so and TV contracts, and they've always promised the whoever owns the rights that there's never going to be a break of more than 2 days, and this is probably a reason why we have a third place game on Saturday.
And speaking of that third place game on Saturday, Carmine, looking at this game, and until this year, I followed more soccer this year than I probably have combined in my life. Not probably. I can go 100% to tell you that. But with this third place game, how important is it, pride-wise, to these teams? Is it a big thing for them to get that third place finish in the World Cup? Or do you have to handicap a little bit? Maybe one of these teams is a little more disappointed than the other because of what they shouldn't have done, losing the semifinal?
No, yeah, there's definitely pride. I'm going to get that in a quick sec, but I just want to touch on the fact that, a third place game in the World Cup, no one remembers who finished 4th and 3rd. So there is a lot of pride. I just don't see why they had this game. Can you imagine if last year on February the 3rd, the day before the Eagles and Patriots played, if they had Jacksonville and Minnesota play,
they used to
finish 3rd?
They used to have an NCAA in the NCAA tournament years ago. You have to be my age to remember this, I guess.
I remember it.
They had consolation games.
Yes.
Whoever lost in the final 4 games on Saturday, they played for 3rd place. And they finally got rid of it because nobody gave a damn about it.
Carmine, let me ask you this. Sorry. Yeah. You know what? We all saw those England pictures of the bars exploding with all the beer in the air. Will that happen if they take a 1-0 goal in this consolation game?
No. Well, it is the English, so they're going to drink no matter what. I was at my regular spot watching the game yesterday, and there was 600 plus fans there. A majority of them, England fans, but there are quite a few Croatians, and they all got along fine. But these guys were drinking like crazy, and it'll be the same thing. They're disappointed. Obviously, they're hurt. They're gutted. And having lost yesterday, obviously going up 1-0, and then Kane literally missed a perfect shot to go up, perfect chance to go up 2-0. They had it, and they sort of switched it off in the second half and started playing a little further back in their own end, and they welcomed Croatia to come forward, and Croatia just took over control of that game. They took over control of midfield, and obviously wanted an extra time, but. I don't think you're going to see many of the starters for England that were in yesterday's lineup. I think some guys will be left off the squad tomorrow. They've got some injuries. Trippier scored that beautiful free kick 5 minutes in. He won't be playing. He limped off at the end. Kyle Walker, Jordan Henderson won't be there. I'm even leery of Harry Kane, whether he plays tomorrow or not. I think we're a month away from domestic leagues kicking off, and some of these guys need a bit of a break. But you're still putting on that jersey for the Three Lions. There is pride. So the guys who go out there will play to win. But Belgium have a team that even if they sat 3 or 4 of their starters, guys coming off the bench Carrasco and Mertens. These are guys who can come in and score. So I'm looking forward to a good game. I don't think it's going to be a boring 1-0 game. I think we're going to see not a lot of goals, but we're going to see enough goals that it's going to make that 3 total interesting.
Carmine, we want to thank you for all the hard work you've done during the World Cup coverage. You flew to Vegas twice, did videos, come in for a podcast, and you were able to take all of our calls every time we wanted to talk World Cup. So I want to thank you for all of that. Fine work. You have anything up this weekend that you want to tell our listeners about?
I do have as I said, the final will go up tonight along with a bunch of props. I do have a card up for Saturday, the Saturday game, which I'll be adding some props to as well, to the third place game, of course. A big MLS card on Saturday. And just to let you boys know, I have some futures to cash, so I'll be coming there in August to sign up for the NFL football contest. Obviously Kelly in Vegas is my proxy for those. And I will be taking you guys out to dinner. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you sure will.
Find some time to go to, I'm pretty sure we can find some time to go to Andiamo's at the D there. So it's for a nice steak.
You know what? It sounds like, Carmine, if someone hasn't been on board, the 3-day package is the perfect weekend to get you to finish out this soccer. But, also our listeners need to know, I mean, you are a soccer expert when it comes to the MLS, when it comes to these other regional leagues. So, this soccer doesn't end with the World Cup for you. It continues on year-round.
No, it doesn't. MLS, like I said, continues on for quite a while. And I've actually, in the last couple of days, I've actually put on a couple big future bets in MLS. I'm actually going to cover that in a little article on WagerTalk, and it'll be up in the analysis. If anyone picks up the MLS on Saturday, in the analysis section, it's going to have some future bets that I've placed wagers on to win the MLS Cup this year.
All right, Carmine, thanks. And we're going to be holding you to those dinners because we got it recorded. We'll play it back.
I don't mind. You guys drink Dr. Pepper, so I'm good.
All right, Carmine, good stuff as always. We're going to step out for a quick break, and when we return, it's going to be Handicapper's Corner. That's up next here on the WagerTalk Podcast.
It's Manic Monday, and that means every pick at WagerTalk.com is just $9. Get a play in any sport valued at up to $30 for just $9 each and every Monday at WagerTalk.com.
We are back, and it's time for Handicapper's Corner. We're going to take a look at our topic this week. We are looking at the All Star breaks this week, guys. We're going to be having next week off. All-Star game next Tuesday, and that's like the mythical halfway point of the season, but it's also triggers a lot of things that, as far as handicapping goes, I know I shift gears a little bit in my handicapping, and I'm going to get some of your guys' thought of things that you look at in the second half. Dave, when we come back from the All-Star break, first thing you're looking at is you're going to have a couple-week stretch. It's the trade deadline.
Yeah, and you're liable to see something taking place during the All-Star break because, all the baseball people are going to descend on the nation's capital, which is where this year's game is being played. And there's some big names we know are going to be traded. Not we think are going to be traded, but we know are going to be traded. Manny Machado being the big prize that's out there. So, you do want to pay attention here and see who's buying and see who's selling. Some of the cases of the teams that are kind of quasi-contenders, and maybe pseudo-contenders is the right word. They're not really contenders, but they're not out of it yet either. If they go into trade mode, it can have an impact on the team where it's a kind of a message being sent that, we don't think we can win. And that can have a negative impact on a team. We've seen it happen with your team, the Pirates, in some years where they just have said, they've been in it, like 3.5 games out or something like that at the All-Star break. and they just punt. And it does send a negative signal to the team, and that's something you can take advantage of in the second half of the season because there's a domino principle. And if the top of the food chain with a particular franchise doesn't believe they can win or believes it's in their best interests not to go that route, to add payroll and go for it, it can spread throughout the rest of the team, and the team can go bad.
And sometimes, Dave, all it takes is the rumor, and you touched upon my Pirates. Go back to last year. McCutcheon's name was on the trading block in the offseason going into last year. During the season, got real hot at the trade deadline. It never happened. It happened finally in the offseason. But just having those rumors about it, you know what the thinking of the franchise is, and it just, like you said, it spreads through the locker room.
Another thing to look at in the second half of the season, and this is just general stuff. I mean, you still have to break down every game individually. But we've seen it this week, really, with the Orioles, who are a terrible baseball team. But the games we know the Orioles are going to have interest in are the divisional rivalry games, particularly against the Yankees and Red Sox. And, you know, betting on the Orioles in this Red Sox and this Yankee series wasn't the worst strategy in the world. You got paid because they managed to split the series. Bear that in mind when you are looking at non-contenders versus contenders if they're in the same division. The Padres, for instance, would love nothing better than to spoil the chances of the Dodgers or the Giants in the NL West. Doesn't mean they're going to be able to do it, but that is something you have to factor in. And then what you can do sometimes is look at a potential letdown if they're coming out of a series like that and then playing somebody out of their division who isn't going to arouse the same interest. Might be a dead spot to go against bad teams.
Dave, how do you feel about when we've got the big-name pitchers that are in their contract year and doesn't look like the team is going to be able to sign them? So obviously they want to get the most they can get for them. But on the same token, that pitcher's got to be fired up because he wants to go to a contender. He wants to be able to, showcase himself in, October when he's going to become that free agent after the season.
It depends on the pitcher, though, because some guys, it does fire them up and they go out and perform well. There's other guys where the noose gets tight, where they know there's some big stakes out there, and they don't do as well. So, it's kind of a hit or miss situation for me. I can't really. It's to be determined on an individual basis.
Dave, I was with you on Las Vegas Sports Line prior to this, and you brought up a great point. While we're talking post-All-Star, there's enough people that are going to listen pre-All-Star. Why don't you share your thoughts about the All-Star snubs with the pitcher, because it's a great philosophy, I think, and let our listeners hear about it.
Yeah, and again, I'll use three examples that pitched on Thursday. One of them just wrapped up his game, Kyle Freeland, on the mound for the Rockies. I thought, and it's important to note that what I think doesn't matter. I did happen to think Freeland was a snub. I think if you're ninth in the National League in earned run average and your home stadium is Coors, you need to be getting more recognition than you are. It's funny how, isn't it funny how Coors hitters, offensive players are penalized in terms of their overall rating for playing at Coors, but pitchers who do well there are never rewarded for it.
Because there's not that many that end up doing well there.
Freeland's been outstanding. Today
he's pitching better at Coors than he is on the road, which is insane.
He's ninth in the National League in ERA, and he probably improved today because he only gave up one run in 5+ innings today. He didn't have his great stuff, but he managed to get through. So Freeland, and the thing is that it doesn't matter if I think they're a snub or not. I'm going to look at the general tendency. We had three today: Freeland, Snell, and Paxton. I thought Freeland was a borderline snub. Snell, I know it's the rules, and he fell victim to the numbers game of the rules, but it's a joke that he's not on the All-Star team. It's ridiculous. He's a full-blown snub. Paxton, now I personally don't think Paxton's a snub. I would not have put him on my roster either. But Scott Service thinks he's a snub, and a lot of the writers in Seattle do. Service came out and said, look at the strikeouts, look at the record.
And
the ERA has got a no-hitter.
Right.
And it's like, hey, he should be on the All-Star team. These guys in their last start before the All-Star break who are deemed as snubs usually go out and pitch really well. They're very motivated to send a kind of a message that, hey, you disrespected me, and I want to go out and show you what I got. We already got one winner out of that today, and we'll see what happens with Snell and Paxton in the later games.
Talk about Snell as a snub. I tweeted this out, and if you don't follow me at CalSportsLV. only 4 pitchers have 12 wins or more. Only 3 pitchers in baseball have an ERA of 2.10 or less. Only 15 pitchers have a WHIP of 1.0 or less, and Snell is the only one in all three categories.
I understand about the numbers. Where every team has to have somebody on, and it kind of screwed him because the Royals had to have somebody on. So Salvador Perez he's hitting guys that's hitting 210, and he gets in the All Star game, and that meant somebody else, and it dominoed. And there are a lot of guys having good years in the American League.
But you compare him to Bauer, and I'm an Indians fan, but you compare Snell to Bauer. His numbers are much better than Bauer's.
Well, but Bauer is, I think, number 1 in WAR among all pitchers in Major League Baseball. He's having that good a year. You have to find a way to get Snell on the All-Star team. It's that simple. You can't have a year this good and not be on the All-Star team.
Well, I use Snell on the Betting First Look. Again, listeners, I'm sure if you don't know it, I do a daily podcast. It's like a 3-4 minute podcast.
What is it, 9-1 the last 10?
9-1 the last 10. And when I started the podcast today, I said, this one's going to be simple, guys. I always break the games down for you, but this one we're going to follow under the category F you guys. And that's the angle, because he is making a statement tonight, like you said, Dave. And what makes it even more is you talk about the snub with the pitchers. There's always going to be players that are snubbed. They're voted by the public.
Right. And the thing is, but the player can't have an individual impact like a pitcher can.
Yeah, right. And it's the players that voted for the pitchers.
I know.
What are they looking at?
But that's the thing.
It's a popularity contest, too.
Players shouldn't be voting. To me, the players shouldn't be voting, period, because their job is to go out and play baseball. It's not to examine other people's stats. Really isn't. And I don't think they pay much attention to it, so they go basically on, big names with a more spectacular resume over a long-term period of time. So Blake Snell gets screwed. Here's the thing. Blake Snell I don't know what Blake Snell's contract is, but if he's got an all-star incentive in his contract and he's not getting paid because of it, that guy's going to take the mound with a little bit of anger tonight.
Yeah. It's for Blake Snell, I would equate it to like when we talk about Heisman voting, and they always say that the West Coast teams are at a disadvantage because the writers don't see them.
It's true.
Nobody sees Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's not.
No, it's people like me who watch.
Right. Tampa Bay sees Tampa Bay.
No, I know. Yeah.
All right, one other last one, and we're going to have some good stuff from Ralph on big favorites, because obviously second half of the year we're going to be seeing a lot of big favorites. We're already seeing them. But, Dave, we've got a lot of, good young pitchers that, every year there's a new crop of pitchers. And the one thing I like to look at is you see guys at the beginning of the year and they pitch so well. But then in the second half, they tail off. And there's a couple different reasons for that. And I know me and you are on the same page in this one. I'll let you go ahead, take the floor with it. What are the two things that happen?
There's two things. One, the innings start to pile up, and they probably didn't pitch this amount of innings at the minor league level. And secondly, they're no longer enjoying the advantage of that first time through the league where hitters haven't seen them. The hitters get more of a book on them. There's less deception in deliveries, a variety of things like that. And it gets tough for rookies to maintain what they've done in the second half of the year, particularly the way they're babied today.
Right.
Because now the innings piling up does mean, when Dwight Gooden was pitching, he could have pitched 300 innings. It didn't matter.
Nolan Ryan, Scott, you ain't coming out here and getting that ball out of my hand.
But now, they get up to 100 pitches. They're done. And I think it's a shame. I mean, it's going off on a tangent a little bit, but I'm going to use it anyway. I'm watching the Brewers game last night, and they have just babied Josh Hader so much. Hader's on the All-Star team. He's had a great year. His last game wasn't very good. He gave up a couple of homers, but he's been unbelievable. But they treat this guy like he's 5 years old. Yeah. They won't pitch him on back-to-back days ever. They basically don't like to even use him every other day. They like him to have 2 full days off after a relief appearance. Now they said, well, we're not going to use him unless we're ahead in the game. What is he going to do come playoff time if they make the playoffs? And now you've got to have these guys are going to have to pitch every day because that's the way it works. I mean, there's a difference between protecting and being ridiculous about it. And it seems like teams never learn. You go back to, I forget what year it is, but Strasburg's.
Oh, do they want that back?
They very possibly blew the World Series.
That was their best chance.
They lost to the Cardinals because they'd shut down. Now, it's not to say Strasburg might have gone out there and absolutely sucked. We don't know. But they didn't even have him available against the Cardinals in that first-round series, and they got knocked out. And Washington had the best team that year. That team should have won the World Series. They've never been back since, and they're falling further and further away from it. And by the way, how much did protecting Strasburg work? The guy's on the DL all the time. Right. You got him, use him.
There was a guy for the Pirates, and I'm blanking on his name, and you remember everybody, Dave. Probably was about 4 or 5 years ago. He had a sensational first half for the Pirates, and then the second half, he got the tired arm syndrome and everything else, and I never saw him again. I think it was McDonald. Was it McDonald for the Pirates? I got to look that up. But he had a great first half for him. Might have even been their candidate for the All Star team. He was that good.
I'm blanking on who it is.
Yeah, I'll look it up in the break. And never saw him again. He had a horrible second half, and he just lost everything. And his arm got tired, and his velocity went way down late in the season.
It's one thing to protect, and you have a younger pitcher. You want to try not to blow him out. But you can't be ridiculous about it. Right. And, last night, if the Brewers lose the NL Central by one game or miss the wild card by one game, they might look back to last night and being overprotective of pitchers as the game that cost them a playoff spot. Not saying it's going to happen, but that's a game they basically blew last night because we don't want to take a chance pitching him. Come on.
Ralph, going to you. We've seen this year already, and just this week, we had Chris Sale at minus 400, minus 410, I think, at one place. Got the money. It was a 4-2 win. But we've talked, time and time again about, if you play big favorites on a regular basis, you're going to get carried out on a stretcher. That's just the way it is. But if you find spots and pick and choose, you've got some numbers to share with us on these big favorites, because the reason we're bringing up big favorites is the teams that are going to be selling, people are going to be betting against them, so they're going to be big numbers as underdogs. Once we go to the expanded roster, those teams will be playing a lot of younger players for next year, and then the teams that are trying to get to the playoffs, obviously, every game is critical for them, so they're doing everything they can to win. And if you want to back them, you're paying a price. But tell us some numbers you've uncovered.
Well, what I did is basically I went back to 2014 and took home favorites and broke it out month by month. If you listen to Dave, he's always going to tell you he plays a lot of road teams and he plays dogs, because if you break even, if you go 4-4 in 8 games, you're going to have shown a profit. Well, April is by far the worst month to play home favorites. If you are betting home favorites blindly in April, the last 4 seasons, you're down over 70 units. It's also a negative in May and June. You're down 28 units and you're down 32 units. But when you get to July and August, those are 2 months where if you bet home favorites blindly, you are actually showing a profit. It has a lot to do with, you guys talked about, it has a lot to do with some players starting to sell, other players knowing they're going to make a run, other people knowing the importance of having a good stretch to get to the playoffs. But then when you get to September again, those home favorites fall off. And I think a lot of that reason is, as you call up and you add to your roster, if you have a young team that perhaps wasn't winning, you're adding more youth to the roster that is trying to show their potential for the upcoming season. Those young teams can get infectious and start to win again in September. So again, you're always going to want to pick your best spots. But again, the only 2 months where betting home favorites blindly is even remotely successful is in the dog days now, where we have these big favorites, where you have teams starting to tank, when you have teams taking their moves in July and August.
All right, guys, great stuff. Love it, and we'll be looking forward to that second half of baseball. We're going to step out for a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be breaking down 3 big games from the weekend, and then, of course, we'll close out the show with our best bets for the weekend. We'll be back here on the WagerTalk Podcast.
Every Tuesday, WagerTalk.com offers a best bet selection from its hottest handicapper. It's a great way to introduce yourself to WagerTalk.com with a big best bet winner for just $2 on $2 Tuesday.
Welcome back to the Wager Talk Podcast. We're going to check out the weekend baseball. And before we jump into the first one, the Friday night game, we got to clean up a little bit of stuff from the last segment. I was right. We looked it up in the break. James McDonald. How bad were those stats?
2012.
First half was
splits were amazing. Pre-All-Star in 2012, his ERA was 2.37. Okay, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good before the All-Star break. And then
after the All-Star break, it was 7 point something.
Yeah, it was and
that was the end of him.
Yeah, all you had to look at was the first number.
McDonald was the guy who came out of the Dodger organization and looked like he was going to be a star. And he never pitched after 13. I think he blew his arm out and never came back again at all. So his career ended very early.
And it was another one of those, you've heard me talk about it before, where the Pirate pitching coach, Ray Searage, he was, at that time, he was the pitching guru. Obviously, we've talked many times, too, about that's kind of lost its luster with Cole and Morton in Houston right now. So, all right, let's head into Friday night, guys. We've got a good one on Friday night. Got Arizona heading into Atlanta. You've got Arizona coming off that big series in Colorado. They had to play today. We're taping on Thursday and lost. Lose 2 out of 3, so Colorado was able to pick up a game on them in the race. And, of course, they got the Dodgers breathing down their neck. They head to Atlanta. Atlanta's a team that, was playing hot, then had that road trip, cooled off a little bit. Back at home, got the win on Wednesday night. Dave, how are you looking at this pitching matchup? Godley, I don't want to steal Ralph's line that he uses with Godley, but on the road, go ahead, Ralph. How's Godley?
He's gone awful, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
His control's lousy, and you just can't get away with that. I don't care what ballpark you're pitching in. You just can't keep doing that. And his walk rate, especially on the road, has been ridiculous. If you watch Godley, and this is why you like to watch the games, you can see when he's going to lose control. He starts overthrowing the ball.
Live betting action?
Well, it's tough to really get it in because it can happen all at once. I mean, he looks fine mechanically, and then you can actually see it with the naked eye if you're even reasonably astute at looking at pitchers. He will start overthrowing the ball. He just gets his mechanics get completely out of whack, and once that happens, he's done for the night. And and that's something that Torey Lovullo is going to have to watch very carefully. The other side of this is the Braves bullpen is pretty bad right now. It's forcing a lot of innings out of their pitchers, the starters, that they really don't want to do. You saw it again on Wednesday night. Fulton Evans just mowing them down through 5 innings. Then it kind of started to wear down. And, by the time they got him out of there, 5 runs. And this is a 7-0 game that turns into 7-5. That's an easy win that got really antsy. The Braves are a team that I think knows that they're in contention. And they're going to have to go out and get a bullpen piece in the second half for the second half of the season if they want to really enhance their chances of making it to the postseason. Here, this is not a good spot for Arizona. If you're just looking at the scheduling, they are coming out of altitude where they had to use a lot of pitchers because it's Coors. And
gave up 19 runs there.
Well, that was smart. That was really smart by Lovullo because he used Descalso and Avila. So he actually didn't extend the bullpen to a great extent, even in that game they gave up 19 runs. He had Descalso in the game in the 4th inning.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before.
Position player. Yeah,
position player in the game in the 4th inning. He's a good manager. He's doing a good job there. It's still coming out of altitude, no rest, having to travel pretty much cross country. The Braves have a scheduling advantage here. Now we'll have to see. I haven't checked the lines for the Friday games yet. We'll see how much of that is in the line. But it's not a great spot for Arizona.
You talk about Godley, and, a 5.82 road ERA is one thing, but having a 1.676 whip on the road is another
That's
thing.
The walks.
Yeah, but, let's give him some credit, though. He is 5-1 his last 6 starts. He gave up 2 runs or less 5 of those 6 starts. So he has battled to keep keep them in games. Now one situation you're looking at is he's out of his routine. He started last week. They gave him an extra day off because he pitched in that 16-inning game on Saturday. So, again, starting pitchers like their routine, and in the middle of the season, all of a sudden, you pitch 1-inning relief, and now you're extending a day. We'll see what happens with that. But, you look at Sanchez. Boy, since his return from the DL, 2.59 ERA his last 7 starts.
I'm just amazed by this. I thought Anibal Sanchez, I honestly
was done.
I thought he was
done. Yeah, I agree
shot.
with you. Yeah, and you look at the games. He gave up 2 earned runs less than 5 games, and the 2 games he gave up more. He gave up 3 runs at New York Yankee Stadium. That's not that bad, and 4 runs against Toronto.
Yeah, he's showing you what you can do when you locate your pitches.
Bartolo, CC, I guess we're seeing it all over the place.
It's all about command. It's not velocity. I mean, it's nice if you can throw the ball 98, but if you can put the ball where you want it to go, you've got a good chance to do well. And Sanchez has really relocated.
A guy named Maddox in Atlantic did that pretty well for a lot of years.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, Greg was throwing. He was throwing high 80s toward the end. He's still getting people out.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, I look at this one, Dave, and I will tell you that over the last couple of weeks, because I had that 1 week with all of the bullpen implosion, I've been looking and I've been using probably 60-40 split. I'm still going more full games, but I'm putting the first 5 inning wagers out more because it's in, and I'm doing well with the first 5 inning plays. And to me, this screams as a first 5 inning play because I don't want to trust that Atlanta bullpen right now that has no confidence. And you got to think if you're coming out of the altitude and everything, and you say that, where does the fatigue start? Does it hit you right away, or does it hit you later in the game? The fact that Sanchez is pitching good and Godley's not on the road, if Atlanta gets out to that quick start and you got that little fatigue factor, it kicks in a little quicker, I think, when you fall behind and okay, let's just mail this one in and get to tomorrow. I'm going to look at the first 5 innings for me with Atlanta.
Add some humidity from the elevation and,
in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Not too humid there, is it?
Yeah.
Jeez.
We can't, everybody says the dry heat out here. We haven't had a dry heat this week. This humidity.
Yeah, but I know it's still.
It's a couple days.
50% is bad, yeah.
Dave, you've been out here
bitch.
longer. You've been out here longer, but I'm only 10 years removed from the humidity, and I got a dose of remembering why I don't like it this week.
All I know is we don't have any mosquitoes out here. Because they like humidity and there isn't any, and they're not going to show up because it was humid for 2 days.
Okay.
So don't sweat it. On the other hand, they don't have scorpions running around Atlanta. So
this is true
it's
stuff.
a trade-off.
The stuff you learn on this podcast, I'll tell you. Let's go to Saturday. I'm going to start with you, Ralph, because this is your team. You've got the Yankees in sending out CC, heading back to where he played a long time. Seems like decades ago with CC. And you got Cleveland and Clevinger, and this Cleveland team, they scored a boatload of runs last night, but
I was going to say it was 40 or 50 pounds ago with CC.
We can't throw stones, can we, Ralph?
You look at CC, and you want to talk about pitchers. Let me just run down. These are the last 5 years in reverse order. 2014, 5.3 ERA. 2015, 4.7. Down to 3.9, down to 3.7. This year, a 3.34 ERA.
It's great.
37 years old, and it's just amazing how he's gotten better again the last 5 years.
It shows you that he's a really intelligent guy when it comes to the art of pitching, because it was at that time frame where you mentioned the high ERAs that he could no longer get it up there with incredible heat. I mean, he was just
can't strike him out with the fastball. Yeah.
He was an intimidating guy, as big as he is. Coming at you from the left side, he hid the ball really well, and then it's arriving at 97 or 98 miles an hour. It's like good luck, okay? He couldn't do that anymore, and he really struggled. He's crafted. This is a craftsman at work now, because he has learned how to pitch with much less velocity, to move the ball back and forth, add and subtract when he can. He's still deceptive with his delivery, and he's become a good pitcher again, a guy that you can have confidence in when you back him.
I'll tell you what, though, this year you want to talk about up and down. April, 1.7 ERA. May, 5.9. June, back down to 1.9. First 2 starts in May, 5.7. So he's either been sub 2 or over 5.7 the last 4 months. So, again, he's on his bad streak. But, I asked you, Dave, and with Clevinger, last year Clevinger did not have a double-digit strikeout at any start he made. This year, he has had double-digit strikeouts 3 of 5 starts.
It's knowing his stuff. He's getting experience. The game's slowed down for him, and he's turning into a real good pitcher. He's not going to be the one who gets all the attention of the Cleveland staff because you got Bauer, you got Kluber, you got Carrasco. But I'm telling you what, he's pitched a very high level this season, and it's not a fluke. Now, we'll have to see what happens as his innings continue to pile up because he's still a young pitcher. But Clevinger's been very impressive. And I like his professional ethic on the mound. He gets the ball, and he doesn't fart around. You better be ready because he is coming. He's going to get the ball, get the sign, and throw it. He's not one of these guys who's taking 25 seconds between pitches.
And sometimes when you talk about because of the people that are on that staff, when you're like the 4th guy on that staff like he is, you don't have the pressure on you that the other guys have, and that's go to Morton in Houston. I think that helps with the staff that he's got in front of him.
And talk about he's also learning from these other guys. You watch
Kluber work ethic and Bauer work ethic. I mean, right there you have Bauer, 2 guys ahead of you.
Bauer might be the most cerebral pitcher in baseball. He really is. I mean, he's invented his own workout techniques, and they
used to laugh at him at Arizona State.
I know.
Yeah, and Arizona. Yeah.
The pitching coaches say, I can't work with this guy. He's the real deal. Kluber's a great pitcher. He's going to the Hall of Fame. There's nothing wrong with Carrasco. When you're a young pitcher, you've got guys like that as veterans that you can learn from on a staff. That's pretty good.
Again, I'm looking at this one, and I don't want to beat the same old drum, but I'm going to beat it here. I'm going to look first 5 innings in this game if I'm playing, and I'm leaning to the Cleveland side. CC in his last 11 innings pitched, he's given up 3 home runs. That's not a good sign for CC. And the MO here is if this game goes 7 innings or beyond, didn't used to be the case with Cleveland. That used to be one of their strong suits was turning it over to the pen.
You take Miller out of the rotation, and everyone's in roles that they're not accustomed to, and it's changed everything since he's been out.
So the Yankees hold a tremendous edge in the bullpen. So I want to get this game done before I get there. So I'm going first 5 innings with Cleveland if I'm playing the game.
Marco, just one more point on your note. Cleveland is number 4 in the major leagues hitting against lefties, hitting .270. CC has now made 14 starts against the Indians since he's been traded to the Yankees. He's gone 7-7 in those, but the average line minus 145. So betting against CC against facing Cleveland has been a small profitable play.
Going to Sunday, Dave, we got John Lester. Did you see this year coming from him?
No, and he's been kind of fortunate, too, because a lot of his peripherals really aren't that good. But, he's John Lester, and he's figuring out how to win games. By the way, nobody's making fun of him at the plate anymore, either. He can hit a little bit.
The one number that I look at, and, it's the most important one as far as a bettor, the Cubs have won 15 of his 18 starts.
8 straight, yep.
It's just,
he's not a guy you want to go against right now.
His numbers in 18 starts, he's got an ERA of 2.45, a whip of 1.17, and Chicago, depending which way the wind's blowing, that can be a ballpark that, obviously is going to help the hitter. So it makes those numbers look even better. Eric Bauer, I'll let you talk about him some, Ralph. This is a guy.
Lauer.
He's been pitching well over his last 7 starts. He's got an ERA of 2.40.
Yeah, again, this is a kid from Cleveland that my son played against growing up, so I followed him closely. Used him as a best bet last week. He pitched well against Colorado, gave up 1 run in 6 innings, got pulled, and they actually lost the best bet, but then pitched shutout against the Dodgers, 8 2/3, 4-hit ball against the Dodgers, 8 strikeouts, 1 walk. It's a kid, like I said, 23 years old, never saw AAA last year. First year in the program, split the season between single A and double A. First 7 starts this year, a 7+ ERA, a 2+ whip. But again, last 8 starts, 2.28 ERA. So it's a kid that has control, has had great numbers in college, great numbers in the minor leagues, and I think it's a great matchup. I'm going to lean to the under with this game. It seems pretty obvious when you have these two lefties, but neither team hits lefties great. San Diego's pretty low. Chicago does hit them decently. They have a decent slugging percentage against them, but the way Lauer's pitching, the way Lester's pitching, I'll be looking at the under for the Sunday game.
Well, and the thing of it is that Lauer is pitching well. He's gaining confidence. And the Padres, you mentioned the Padres are atrocious offensively against lefties. So there's a good chance Lester's going to have himself a good game here for the Cubs. I would agree. I think the under is live in this game.
Dave, I want to ask you one question here. This being a Sunday game, and the Cubs obviously going to be a big favorite because of Lester on the mound. It's the last game before the All Star break. It's the last game of a road trip for the Cubs. Do you ever look at some of these road favorites on that last Sunday and say, are they how me and you's going on a vacation. I'm going to be in vacation mode come Saturday, ready for our trip.
I'm already packing.
So do these guys heading into the break, and being on the road trip like that, do you think that it's looking at, hey, if they check out mentally early, they're laying a big price? Is there some live there with the underdog?
I don't know. It's tough. That's tough for me to read because everybody's planning vacations. Some of the players who are in this game are going to have to immediately get on a plane and fly all the way across the country to Washington for the All-Star festivities. So, it's not much of a vacation for them.
I did look last year. Last year, the favorites and the road team both went 7 and 8.
So nothing much there.
But there were seven games where one of the teams scored 0 or 1 runs. So, perhaps you do have something where, there is a pitcher who's hitting well against a team that's not in it, not very excited to be there. So, to me, it just stuck out that there were 7 games where there's only 1 or less run scored.
My routine generally before breaks, the day before the break, last games before the break, whether it's NHL, NBA, Major League Baseball, I think there's less reliability. You don't know what these guys have planned. Especially the Cubs, they're not going to be leaving together. They're going to be scattering to all over the country. Some are going to go on vacation. I wouldn't be surprised if a few of the Cubs who don't have to go to Washington get on a plane and head right here. No, I'm serious. To Las Vegas. Why not? It's a perfect place to vacation for a few days. So I usually am very conservative on those final days before the break. It's like, this is not going to be a normal day. I think I'll be... play it thin to win or don't play anything at all.
And again, that's just a great handicapping tip. If you're not sure, it's better just not to play it. Don't force something or don't try to assume you're going to understand the mentality of someone. If there's a question mark, just leave it be.
You're laying a price based on they're looking at the numbers and looking at everything at 100%. But if it's not 100%,
no,
and you're laying that price.
One thing to remember. It's a semi-home game for the Cubs. I've been to Cubs-Padres games at Petco. Mm-hmm. You can't believe how many Cubs fans will be there. It'll be half the
weekend helps.
I'm telling you, it's going to be half the house, maybe more, will be Cubs fans.
All right. Well, a good tip in general that on that last day, because we know we've talked about it several times, Dave, on the show. The Thursday games, the getaway games, the Sunday games. A lot of times, if a manager's going to rest a player, he rests them on that day. And just so you don't know the lineups you're going to get. So just be careful. It's an added factor to throw in there when you're thinking about laying a big favorite on the final day before the break. All right, guys, we're heading to the home stretch. When we come back, it's best bet time. We'll be back in a second here on the WagerTalk Podcast. Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. It is the final segment. It is best bet time. Before I get into the best bets, guys, just a quick note. Next week is the All Star Break, and we are going to take a week off from doing the podcast. You guys will be back in 2 weeks. I'm looking forward to a vacation.
Are we going to be able to follow you on Twitter and see the beautiful women of Del Mar on opening day?
Yeah, I think
there'll be some photos.
Okay,
there'll be some
Appreciate
photos.
It.
By the way,
because you said that now, I am obligated to take as many photos as I can for our followers, and I will let my wife know that that's why my phone is filled.
It is recorded, absolutely,
yes.
so it's mandatory.
It's mandatory, yes. Okay, got
Good
that
idea.
out of the way?
A quick note on me. I can't speak for anybody else, but I will not have my blog next week. I will not have any plays in the All-Star game. And we're coming back on Friday, and I'm going to let them play the first day out of the break. I will not be putting any plays up until Saturday of next week. So if you're looking for any selections from me or for those customers who are on the full access, and you're wondering, hey, where the hell are the plays? There aren't any until next Saturday. After Sunday, there's nothing until Saturday.
Yeah, it'll be the same for me, Dave, and I'm glad you brought that up because when guys like us are that old and we don't have plays for 5 days, they might assume that, we kicked the bucket, What can I say?
I hope that doesn't happen. It would really screw up the vacation.
It would. Yeah, and if I didn't get that disclaimer in about the pictures that are going to be on my phone, that might have screwed things up too. So
Ralph made me do it.
Yeah. All right, let's get the best bets. Let's start, Ralph, since you paved the way for a bunch of pretty girls on my phone this week. I'll let you lead it off, bud.
You know what? I'm looking at, Philadelphia at Miami, and while you don't think Miami has been a good hitting team of late, they certainly have. Since July the 1st, they are number 2 in Major League Baseball, averaging 10-point hits per game. It's Arrieta and Chen. Arrieta had one good performance this past start, but other than that, his last 7 starts, 32 runs, averaging 5 innings per start. His road whip 1.45. Chen has a home ERA of 1.89, very misleading. A road ERA of 10.47. Chen's last 7 starts, most of them have been on the road, a 6.20 ERA. I'm very surprised this over-under number is 8. I'm going over Philadelphia and Miami, Arrieta and Chen.
By the way, Real Muto will be back from his paternity leave tomorrow after missing the Milwaukee series. So that's another boost for the Miami offense, getting their best guy back in the lineup.
Dave, you've got to play for tomorrow night as well. I think you're heading to Pittsburgh, my old stomping grounds. What are you looking at?
Junior Guerra, Nick Kingham, the matchup, Brewers versus Pirates. I don't know if it'll make my card or not because I want to see what happens in tonight's game, obviously. But I like Guerra on the surface here. He's pitched well for Milwaukee. He's been a surprise. A lot of people expecting regression out of Guerra, but it just really hasn't come. Kingham, who is a Las Vegas kid, got some talent, but, right now he's going through some growing pains at the Major League level. Price at the Westgate, as we're doing this recording, is Milwaukee minus 110. I would side with the Brewers.
And we've got a play from Carmine before I get to my best bet. Carmine was with us on the first segment, and he gave us a soccer play for Saturday. It's FC Dallas and the Chicago Fire, and he's telling us to go over 3 goals. Over 3 goals. FC Dallas, Chicago Fire. I believe that game was on Saturday, he said, in soccer. For me, guys, I'm going to stay with the theme of the night for me, and that is first 5-inning wager. And my dad used to always say a saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, the Washington Nationals, and Ralph, you brought this to light. We'll give you credit for it. They are now 3-21-7. Their last 31 first 5-inning wagers.
Amazing.
One more to add to that, Marco, just because we talked about it on the radio today. Keep track. We know the Orioles are horrible, but they've won a couple games. They are 0-8-2 their last 10 games now, the first 5 innings.
Okay, we'll have to keep an eye on them. I thought they were more bad in the back end with that.
No, actually, you might not be aware of this, but they've actually been leaving the field after the 5 innings. Say, well, that's we lost anyway. So.
But so we already got that stat working for us with Washington. Well, here comes the better stat. We've got Tanner Rourke on the mound for Washington. And, boy, you got to start to think his days might be numbered in the starting rotation because he has, been just horrid as of late. Talk about numbers here. How about in his last 2 starts, 13 runs in 11 innings? That's bad enough.
And it could have been worse because the Marlins, they stranded 10 guys in the first 4 innings in Rourke's last start.
Yeah.
And they finally got him out of there.
I was going to put in the more, as you said, the more alarming number is he's had 25 base runners in those 11 innings. 25 base runners. No, that's not good at all.
That's 2.5.
Yeah, and we've got Syndergaard coming back from the DL. You know I like to take guys that first start back. He'll be on a pitch count. I understand that, but that pitch count's going to get him through the 5 innings. I don't want anything to do with the Mets bullpen. Simple. Mets first 5. That's where I'm going to go, and don't overthink it.
You know, Marco, I don't mean to interrupt the Best Bet segment and ask you a question, but, I know you talk about pitchers coming back, and you like being on those pitchers. Does it matter if it's the 60-day DL or the shorter DL, or doesn't it matter to you?
Well, obviously, if it's a guy that just went on a 10-day DL, no, I don't apply that at all. I want to get it where the longer, the better. Okay? But because Syndergaard was pitching so well before, I'm looking for him to get. They're not going to bring back Syndergaard before he's ready. He's their franchise pitcher. That's the other thing that you got to realize when they bring pitchers back. He's ready, and he had a rehab start on Sunday, gave up 1 run in 5 innings, was really solid. So, and again, it was in the minors, but it was a rehab start. So all systems are go with him, and all systems are not go with Tanner Rourke. So first 5 innings, take them. Guys, it's been a fun show. Want to thank Carmine for being on the show with us tonight. Also want to thank my partners in crime, Dave Koch and Ralph Michaels. You wouldn't hear any of this if it wouldn't be for the man behind the controls, Mr. Mark Seidel, and his Houston Astros let me down yesterday on the run line, but, I won't mention that. Oh, I guess I just did.
Let's go.
Yeah, and Dave and I, we will be in Del Mar next week looking at 4-legged fillies.
Into.
Okay. Dave said that, honey. We'll be back next week on Marco D'Angelo. Shout out to Johnny Detroit, who gets this on the air for us with iTunes and all of our social media outlets. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Let's cash some tickets.